Well, after a great travail to establish contact, hours and hours spent honing this particular video, we can now go over to Pat McCart. What was the problem, Pat?
Jude, if I knew the answer, I would tell you. The only thing is,
I like asking hard questions.
Yes, what is that term, Luddite? All I know is I tried about 3 times to get connection, and it kept buffering. Anyway, the next thing I said, right, give me an option between Zoom and Chrome, and I said, right, go for Zoom, go for one, and it opened for some very strange reason. So, no, Jude, I bet you our 2 listeners our viewers aren't any the wiser after what I'm telling them.
Anyway, your image is really terrific now. It's your phone because you're using your phone, is it? It used to be much fuzzier than you are now. You're sharp as a tack.
When you're as charming and as good looking as I am,
well, that's true, Pat. I can only dream of that kind of thing. Okay, let's get on to the bungling political classes and create some mayhem among them. You sent me a number of things, Pat. The first one was your first statement was bungling. Boris is at it again. Tell us what do you feel Boris is up to?
Dude, when I read it yesterday morning, I thought this is absolute sabotage, and for whatever reason. Now, I presume one of the things Boris has got something really against Rishi Sunak. He probably sees Rishi as and the Brutus role that he had played in getting rid of him as Prime Minister. But his intervention yesterday, Jude, was totally, completely malicious, malevolent, and deliberately done to do as much harm. He's trying to ensure, no matter what, his deal, the Northern Ireland Protocol deal, was totally dishonest. They signed it saying they would break it. The EU's not playing ball, and so on. So basically, the frantic efforts last week by Rishi to get a deal where he met just about everybody that was worth meeting, and then he went off to Europe, and on the fringes he met Ursula von der Leyen, and there was supposed to be some talk tomorrow that there'll be someone introduced at Westminster. I think Boris's intervention was designed to blow it out of the water, and he's coming down and saying this is all done on behalf of the DUP and for the greater good of the Union of the UK. I think it's purely personal. And he was warned by John Major and Tony Blair that he was playing fast and loose with the peace process in Northern Ireland. He didn't give a shit. And now here he comes again one more time. So his role in Northern Ireland has been less than good.
I think you're dead right. He really, am I right in saying that he has aligned himself full square with the DUP in terms of the protocol?
Yeah.
There's two ways you could look at that, I suppose. One is that he's just he wants to get his own back on Sunak because he doesn't want to see Sunak succeed because he believes Sunak stabbed him in the back, etc. The other view I've seen expressed in a column was that he wants to become Prime Minister again. I think that's quite a possibility. It's a serious possibility. The reason is the Conservatives are in a serious hole electorally. They're making Starmer look terrific. So who's going to save them? Nobody in the Tory party is going to save them. Rhys Moggs isn't going to save them, that's for sure. No. But Boris Johnson might well do. Now, you might say, oh, look, everybody remember the bad things he did. They'll also remember the fact that he waltzed through that election and got them 80 extra seats. I seriously believe, and Boris believes himself built in the mold of Churchill, who was thrown out of office and came back then even stronger. Would you go along with that, or is that true?
No, I agree with you totally. No, Jude, that upper class buffoonery that we find almost offensive and it jars with us. A lot of the Brits love it. They love that arrogance. Jude, I remember being in Spain years ago, and there was a couple of young squatties that came up to a table, and the place was really busy. And the next thing I heard, dog whistling to the waitress to come over. I remember she put down her tray and she walked over and she said, "I'm not a dog." But I was thinking, there's a real arrogance there, that anybody would do that. Everybody else sat and waited their turn. The Brits, like a lot of Americans too, love Trump because he was putting America first, and he was saying, to hell with the Russians and the Germans and anybody else. We know everything, and they love that sort of flag waving stuff. Well, I think that Boris, what is it he said? You're right. He thinks that there's a possibility that before the next election, because it's going to be carnage, that they'll dump Rishi and come looking for him. The ball is. Remember, he said, he used the term, the ball might come out of the scrum, and he wants to be the one that catches the ball.
Yeah, he said hasta la vista, baby. For now, I think. Did he say for now?
Something along those. I think he said for now. Yeah.
The more I think about it, I'm going to make a prediction. My prediction isn't fully, cast iron, but I would say there's a chance of about 7 out of 10 that Johnson will become the leader of the Tories again and lead them into the next election. And God knows they could very likely win the bloody thing.
Well,
what would you say?
Yeah, I don't know about that. Well, but Jude, yeah, it's very popular. He's probably the only leader that the Tories have. And this intervention yesterday morning was aimed at that 100 or so right-wing MPs who are not too pleased with Rishi. Yeah, and so on. And he's trying to ensure that there's no deal with the EU. But dude, Rishi, apparently the deal he has, they will drop that Northern Ireland Protocol bill totally, and they will make some sort of compromises along the way. What he's trying to do, Boris is trying to do, is ensure that there's no compromise. And Jude, if there's no compromise, there is no, Jude, if Northern Ireland is in the single market, there is no way the European Court of Justice cannot have a rule. It's something. There's that a double negative. They have to have a rule. Yeah. So there, Jim Alister and Sammy Wilson and Jamie Bryson and anybody that they're going to get their own way on that, I think they're deluded, because it can't happen and won't be allowed to happen.
Do you really think that they'll just push on through? I mean, will they not? I mean, I could see if they push this through with the protocol in place, proper protocol or some sort of agreement they've come to with the EU. From all the signs, that's not going to be enough for the DUP. It's not going to be enough for Johnson, and it's not going to be enough for the ERG, this right-wing rump in the Conservatives. So if they refuse to accept it, I don't know if it'll work, Pat. I don't think it'll work. I can't. I'm trying to see beyond that. If that's passed, and you have Johnson and the ERG and the DUP saying, no, we're not accepting that. Oh, you passed it. Oh, you got the numbers. Fine, you made it law. We reject that law. Do you see that happening? And if so, what?
No, I think the Tory party are almost unmanageable at this stage. There's about 100 of these ERG guys, and maybe it's like turkeys voting for Christmas, because if they keep going, I guess it looks like they'll be wiped out at the next election. But maybe they're all so rich that they really don't mind that. But the bottom line of it is, we're back almost now in Theresa May territory. One part of the Tory party wanting this, another part. There's quite Rishi as a finance guy, as we all know. He's I don't think his heart's big time in Northern Ireland. He wants to deal with the EU. Jude, remember we mentioned last week that there was a big secret meeting that The Guardian reported on of senior Tories, Jude, they know, and let's put it on the record one more time. Of all the G7, the only one as a negative growth is is Britain, and there's a lot of things going wrong. So Peter Mantles and these guys and Michael Gove were at this secret meeting. Dude, I think Rishi wants a deal. He wants to get the economics right again. He wants to get things. And I think Boris's intervention was designed to sort of hold that below the waterline. It's all about Boris when it comes to Boris. He's willing to screw nearly the country and Rishi Sunak so that he can get back in again.
Yeah. So he's determined to scupper the protocol, and presumably he'll be alarmed by the sight of these cross-party.
Yeah. He'll be the knight on the white charger. Now, the only thing, Jude, I don't know whether Rishi would have the balls to go for it, but Keir Starmer has given him a carte blanche. He says any deal he makes that's anyway acceptable at all, he'll have full Labour backing, Mm-hmm.
But I don't think, do you think the DUP, I don't think the DUP is going to accept it no matter what. I mean, Sammy Wilson's on the record this morning, was it, saying there's a huge gap between the EU and the UK. There's not, of course, but he says there is.
Yeah. But Jude, if they're saying that the European Court of Justice can have no role whatsoever, and this whole deal. Well, that's not Jude, what's the point? If Britain can make all the decisions unilaterally, then there's no deal.
Well, if they come to a point where they say they get some role for the ECJ in the background, sufficiently far back that it's not going to grate, do you think it'll pass? Do you think you can push it through? And then what do you see as a result of that?
Well, here's the thing. I can't remember who the last day said it doesn't matter what rule. I think it might have been Jim Allister saying it doesn't matter what rule, as long as the ECJ is there. That means Northern Ireland has been treated differently to the rest of the UK, so therefore this is unacceptable, no matter how far back. What could happen is they could say that if there's a dispute, maybe a neutral observer comes in, and it only can go to the ECJ when it can't be resolved. It could push them maybe 3 days
ways.
Between. Yeah, but I think, like you, I agree. I think it's now become almost purist, absolutist, no matter what. And Jude, if they insist on that, I don't see how they can get a deal.
Okay. We'll just wind it up by talking for about a minute about Boris. Do you think Boris is going to make a comeback as leader?
I wouldn't. I wouldn't be as strong as you, but I wouldn't rule it out. Jude, right now they're facing a wipeout. They said they could lose 314 seats or something.
Well, what could be worse than that? Would they not be prepared to take a punt on Boris?
Yeah, exactly. Sure, they said that if the current predictions are correct, the Tory party at the next Parliament will be third behind the SNP.
Well, that's again, you see that, and Boris has made it clear that he's interested. He came over at one time, going to throw his hat in the ring for a leader. The time that Sunak became a leader. I just don't think. I think, for example, Trump will not come back.
No, I don't think Trump can come back now.
But I wouldn't bet. I wouldn't bet. As I say, I would say 7 out of 10. I feel that Boris Johnson's going to make a comeback, which is sort of awful. It's all the bad things that you thought couldn't happen. Finally, got the bugger out of the number 10.
He lied and he cheated. He made a deal that he had no intention of sticking around to. In 7 years, the one thing they keep throwing out is they got ahead on the rollout of the vaccine. By the way, and that I don't even know if that's actually strictly true either, because a lot of other countries were pretty close on their heels anyway. But that's their one claim to fame for Brexit. He's made a balls up of the Northern Ireland peace deal. He's ensured Stormont has disappeared. He's ruined the relationships with the EU. He's ruined relationships with Dublin. That's some trick, right?
What do you think is on the mind of the Labour Party and of the Tory Party right now? I'll tell you who's going to win the next general election. And that's exactly Boris Johnson will win them votes. It's only a question of how many. But I suspect if he got a run at it and had, say, a 6-week campaign, he would smarm around, he would charm, he would be witty, he would transform. And people are very forgiving, Even when it's against their own interests, they'll forgive. So you can have Boris on the one side, powering ahead to an election. You could have the DUP digging their heels in. I don't think, I've just watched a video of Jim Allister. I don't think the Stormont's going to come back because of the reason that you gave.
What did Jim Allister actually say? I didn't see that.
Well, as I understood it, I have it actually here and I could play it, but as my memory of it was that he's saying the idea of any true unionist going back into Stormont as deputy first minister is simply unthinkable. I mean, he's always had that sort of line, that why would you put in charge of the state people who don't want the state to exist? Which is true. I mean, that's a good question.
So is Jim a Democrat?
No.
People who don't like that?
That's another question entirely, Pat.
But here's a question, Dr. Collins. If you follow the logic of Jim's argument, where does that lead?
It leads to, it leads to the logical conclusion. We have a state that was built 100 years ago, and it was only built to have one shape, and that was the top dog unionism. And that's gone. It's gone. It can't.
Yeah.
Unlike Boris Johnson or anybody else, it cannot come back. But
Yeah.
all Jim Allister is doing is spelling it out and saying nobody should accept the underdog status in a renewed, revived Stormont.
Yeah.
And he got a lot of votes for that, I'll tell you.
Can I repeat something? And I'm running it back. Does it ever sort of go through your head? See all this stuff about the protocol, the one about the ECJ. Nobody mentioned it. I heard was it no? What do you call him?
O'Toole,
Foyle MP, Colin Eastwood the other day. Martin, he said he's never heard anybody, and in all his conversations, anybody mention on the street mention the ECJ to him. A lot of farmers and a lot of business people actually think the protocol is a good idea. That the access to both the internal markets of Europe and Britain is a very good thing. And by the way, the other thing it started out, both Arlene Foster and various other people in the unions originally said this is a good deal. Now, Jude, what's happened to all this? The bottom line, I think, no matter what we come at it, I think there's something there that keeps coming back into my head, that the real reason is the psychological that you alluded to, that they simply cannot find themselves the headspace to say they'll be deputy to Sinn Féin.
And in a way, that's the local version of Britain's leaving Europe. Britain cannot bear to be simply a member of the club and maybe a slightly minor member of the club. So it says, we'll go out and we'll be Great Britain again. You know, make America great again.
How dare those frogs and those krauts tell us what to do?
Okay, let's leave that in the few minutes we've left. 4 minutes left. Very quickly, Daithi'S law has been passed. If it hasn't been passed, it's going to be passed, because I heard a clip on the radio where young Daith'i was jumping around and delighted and stuff. So they've essentially got it passed in Westminster. So is that okay? Did we just forget about the stand that the unionists took?
Jude, what are you reading that? Is that Heaton Harris playing sort of soccer to the DUP again? You know,
I think so. I think so. He certainly let them off the hook, isn't he? Because they were being held up as the people who would block a transplant for a poor youngster that clearly was charming in every way. Yeah.
And so he's letting them off the hook there big time. Absolutely.
But that's their job. He's British. That's what they do with unionists. A British Tory. They're hardly going to, dump them in the dirt, except they have to, of course. And if they do have to, they'll do that too. Okay, very quickly. I'm a wee bit intrigued by this one. DJ Carey. Now, not everybody may know who DJ Carey is, but he was a wonderful, I gather, hurler when he was playing. He's now retired, I think. But he owed over €9 million to the AIB. The AIB has written down the debt, as they say. They let him off, in other words, and he only has to pay about 60,000 or something like that. Something really small.
They've written off 9.6 million debt, down by 99 point, I think it's 6% or 99.4%.
Okay, what's your gross?
Jude, I remember several years ago, myself and a young fella got into a wee venture, and anyway, eventually it wasn't very successful. And I think we owed somewhere finally to a bank, somewhere maybe 1,200 quid. I remember for about a couple of months, I got non-stop letters, debt collectors and all that sort of stuff. And by the way, there was somebody a case at the time trying to sort it out. And I remember thinking, you guys, in fact, I think Jude I owed all of 300 quid. And I remember it went on for about a year, 2 years, and I had every intention of paying them. I just wasn't going to pay them until everything was sorted out.
Yeah.
And I did pay them back. But I remember thinking, Jude, it comes across DJ Carey, the AIB is a big sporting bank involved in the GA, all the rest of it.
Yeah.
But there's something seriously, there's a two-tier system, and you have to ask yourself, how did someone get 9.4 million or whatever it was written off?
Because
there should be some inquiry into what's going on. Now, I'm not making any allegation against DJ Carey because I don't know, but there's something very odd that somebody can get that written off, and people who have mortgages and are struggling to pay their mortgages are getting slammed left, and centre.
Yeah, I find myself split on it. I agree completely what you said. Everybody clearly should be treated the same way. In fact, maybe with a bit more courtesy by the AIB from the sound of things. But that's your head saying that. my heart says, well, DJ Carey was a legend, a great player. Ah, the hell with it.
Absolutely.
Even the public have to shoulder €9 million. They've done it for worse things than DJ Carey. That's the
Yeah, but
truth.
Jude, I've numerous. There's people here in Donegal who Micah who are still being demanded the
Ah,
banks that they
well,
pay the
that's true.
mortgage, even on
That's
houses
true.
that they can't even live in.
Aye,
Now,
aye.
Jude, you've got to say to yourself, now who made the decision, and what's a two-tier approach? How does it work? How
Uh,
does somebody get that's much written off, and people in
hierarchy.
dire need?
Hierarchy.
Yeah.
Pat, we're
Hey,
out of time. We'll have to go. I don't know what you're going to do with the rest of the day, but it's a beautiful spring-like day. So enjoy yourself. Enjoy
thank you
yourself.
very much,
It's
Dr.
later
Collins.
than you think.
You think? See
Okay,
you later,
Pat,
Jude.
thanks.
Good luck.
All
See
the
you
best.
Friday. Good luck. Bye bye.